Hi, my name is Jim Peterson. Today it is my honor to have the opportunity to interview Dr. Walter Bortz as the first part of a two-part effort to recognize Dr. Bortz for the exceptional person he is. As you may know, Walter is a renowned physician, a respected researcher, and an icon in the field of health and aging. He is also an athlete, a philanthropist, a widely read author, a family man, and an irreplaceable friend. In short, he is a difference maker who has had a positive impact on the lives of countless people. How did you first get involved in medicine and the subject of aging?
I'm a practicing physician, but I'm also, more importantly, my father's son. And father was a great man. He was precocious in his understanding of what life and medicine was about, and I was terribly lucky to be his son. And father preached wellness, not sickness, not how bad you are, but rather how good you are. And that's been my motif. I've graduated of University of Pennsylvania Medical School, but then 30 years ago I moved here to California and joined the staff of Stanford, where I'm on a practicing physician and teaching faculty at Stanford. And that's a credential that I pride myself on. I've never, ever known not to be interested in aging because of my father. Dad was a founding member of the American Geriatric Society. He was a friend and partner of all the great early people in the field of aging. So I just inherited that. It was natural. We want you to be sick, and the reason for that is we get paid for you being sick. That's fundamentally a wrong premise. We need to be paid to be well, and so we need a system that allows that to happen. But so far we have not discovered how to make a system work that pays you for being healthy.
To what do you attribute your good health into your 90s?
Physically, I was a jock as a kid. Not terribly distinguished, but I was a good golfer, played basketball, played softball. I went to Williams College, fabulous school, and I was premier in all the local athletics there. I have 45 marathon medals that have been remnants of my opportunities in Boston. I've run Boston 5 or 6 or 7 times. Ran Big Sur, which was my favorite. Ran in Greece from Marathon to Athens. Ran the New York Marathon several times, London Marathon. So I've been a marathoner, and I'm proud of that. And I've written papers about being a marathoner. So that's my vanity. A lot of my well-being now is a byproduct of my physical activity. So that's been my totem that features my marathoning.
Would you please take a moment and discuss some of the research you've conducted during your career?
Well, I'm beholden to my expert colleagues in the field of physical activity, and I've read and been part of their life, and we've supported it at Stanford. We've done substantial research. We've done work that showed that runners have big arteries. That's a good observation. I also found that runners' high is a specific response to endorphins, and I did work on endorphins. But that's all been parallel to my investment in the running world. I not only have been doing running myself, but I've supported my family. My son and my earlier wife were marathon runners. And so I've done research not only on me, but on these friends. I've written papers on what happens when you run 100 miles. You don't collapse, you run 100 miles. And so one of my take-homes is we live lives inferior to ourselves. William James said that, and I believe that most all of us don't live up to our potential. And if I had one single thing to leave my fellows, is to live life actively, live life involvedly.
Is there a single focal point on which you feel particularly strong concerning aging.
And I guess if I have a single thing that I worship is the idea of making yourself necessary. I don't want to be allowed to be supported in without responsibility. I like to be remembered for being necessary. So I've labored to do that in my work and in my life. I like to be thought of as being necessary.
Would you like to take a moment and discuss how a skiing accident you suffered impacted your attitude toward medicine?
Part of my opportunity was to ski in Stowe, Vermont. And so one fateful day I was out skiing with my kids on the nosedive at Stowe, and I dug my ski tips into the soil, and I pitched forward and pulled my right Achilles tendon off, and I'd known what I had done. So I took some scotch and got on an airplane, came home, and the surgeon sewed my Achilles tendon back up, made me whole again. So I got up with a long leg cast, and I struggled around on crutches and a leg cast for 6 weeks. Took the leg cast off, and I looked down at my leg, and I said, "Whose leg is that? That's not my leg. That's an old leg." But my leg wasn't old. It was just, the other leg was just as old, and it was still fine. But my leg grew old and cast, and so that planted the important idea that much, or not most, of what we think of as aging is not really aging, but it's disuse. And I wrote a major paper in the AMA Journal called Disuse and Aging, and contrasted what happens to any part of us. When it doesn't get used, it shrivels, and that's a commonplace observation that we're all aware of. Practice makes perfect.
What are some of your thoughts about ACSM?
Well, ACSM has been the leader in the field of sponsoring the leaders of sports medicine, and are all my friends. I hope to think that they were my friends and continue to be my friends. I think it's a cause of making America fit, make America not only healthy again, but fit again, and those are synonyms. We are as healthy as our fitness. And I think that how we measure our oxygen consumption is a good measure of that. That goes by the jargon term of VO2 max, how we move oxygen. I was in Australia with a friend of mine down there, Maria Fiataroni, and she measured my oxygen carrying capacity. And the way you do that is you get on a bicycle with a mouthpiece and huff and puff on a bike. And you get through, and Maria said, "Thank you for your effort." And I said, "I enjoyed it a lot." And I said, "I pushed myself pretty hard, but I could have gone harder." She said, "But you're doing not like a 70-year-old, but like a 50-year-old. And that's part of my message, is that fitness is a 30-year age offset. So you're buying 30 years of fitness simply by making the idea, I'm going to be necessary. And being necessary means moving your whole body. When you're fit, it's not just your heart or your lungs or your head or your brain. It's the whole system. We are a fit person. I'm a fit person. I'm proud of that. Well, Steve Blair, I guess, comes to the top of my list. Steve is a principal. He did some of his research here at Stanford, then he went to Cooper and was head of the research at the Cooper Institute, and then he left there. And Steve is a master of physical fitness. Bill Haskell is one of my close friends here in Palo Alto, and he's been another of the leaders. But it goes way, way back beyond that, because my dad was friends of the real giants of physical activity. Ansel Keys was one of our early, and when they talked about K rations were Keys, Ansel Keys from the University of Minnesota. And he was an expert in nutrition and exercise. And they, of course, go together. You're as fit as your diet, and I've done a lot of work in physical fitness and exercise and diet.
You've written numerous books. My favorite title among the various books you've written is we live too short and we die too long. Could you speak to a moment about how that particular title came about?
Jim is referencing the first one was, we live too short and die too long, and that was a byproduct of my friendship with Norman Cousins. Norman was a giant in the American literature arena, and I'd written all these articles. He said, Walter, you got to write a book. I said, I don't know how to write a book. So he affiliated me with some New York agents, and I went to Bantam, and I sold them We Live Too Short and Die Too Long. And it was monumentally successful, and I'm still very proud of it. There are truths in it that will not perish. Friend of Linus Pauling's. Linus been in this very chair I'm sitting in. He lives near us. And Linus and I nourished one another because I come from an unusual circumstance. I am a physician, but I'm also a fitness person. And there aren't terribly many of us. And most of us are aggregated within the American College of Sports Medicine that is in Indianapolis. And I cherish my membership with them.
How did your involvement in 50 Plus lead to the Walter Bortz lecture at the ACSM Summit?
Was benefited by some gifts from patients of mine. They said, what can I do for you? And I said, help me spread the message. And the message is done through younger people. And I'm proud that I'm a clinical associate professor of medicine at Stanford, and I teach there. And I write with my colleagues. And a byproduct of that was an endowment. And this endowment came to me, and I didn't need the money personally, so I said, let's start up a lectureship. So there's now a lectureship at the American College of Sports Medicine in my name, and that's a source of much pride to me.
One final question. 30 years from now, what would you like your legacy to be?
One of the things I've copied is to see what all have seen, to think what none has thought. And that simply means there's an awful lot of knowledge out there, but the world comes to the person who synthesizes this knowledge. And I think I've been a synthesizer. I've taken many diverse pieces of information and made a whole out of them. But the whole of them is making yourself necessary.
In closing, thank you, my friend.